In a secret government lab in Korea, scientists subject dogs to cruel experiments, hoping to turn them into war machines. This initiative is called Project Silence. Meanwhile, at the Department of Security, Secretary Young discreetly gives Deputy Director Cha some extra cash in gratitude for his support during the campaign. Later at home, Cha watches his daughter Kyungmin pack for her trip to study abroad. She includes her late mother's book, but Cha scolds her, complaining about the unnecessary weight. Upset, Kyungmin reminds him it's the only remaining copy before storming off to her room. That evening, Cha drives Kyungmin to the airport. On the way, they stop at a gas station, where Cha tries to pay, but the clerk, Joe, says the card reader isn't working and asks for cash. Cha notices Joe's master key and accuses him of pretending to be a clerk. Joe denies it, and Cha leaves without paying, promising to bring the money later. At the airport, sisters Moran and Yura are denied boarding because Yura forgot to renew her passport. Frustrated, Yura blames Moran, who acts as her manager, for missing her golf tournament. As they argue, an elderly woman named Sunak mistakes Yura for her cousin. Her husband, Byung-hak, arrives to bring her back, but as Sunak tries to cross the street in confusion, she almost gets hit by a car. The others pull her back just in time, and Byung-hak reminds Sunak that he's her husband. The sisters realize that Sunak is suffering from dementia. Shortly after, all these characters converge on a fog-covered bridge just outside the city. Most drivers proceed cautiously, but one reckless driver in a yellow car speeds dangerously, filming the drive for social media. A mysterious vehicle carrying a cage also drives erratically, forcing Cha to dodge. As it passes, Kyungmin spots a sad dog in the back seat. In another car, Dr. Yang is being transported by soldiers to a lab. The yellow car accelerates recklessly and nearly collides with another vehicle, coming to an abrupt stop and blocking part of the road. This causes a chain reaction, with cars crashing one after another. Byung-hak and Sunak's bus barely avoids hitting the fence, but many other vehicles aren't as lucky. A massive pileup ensues, with drivers trying desperately to avoid the wreckage. Some flee their cars just in time to escape serious injury. A large truck tries to swerve to avoid the bus, but flips onto its side, crushing nearby vehicles. As the chaos unfolds, a police car crashes into a crane on the opposite lane. Back at the gas station, Joe is being reprimanded by the owner for losing money. They hear news of the bridge disaster on the radio, and Joe realizes that Cha is likely caught in the pileup. He grabs his dog, Jody, and leaves in his truck to find Cha. On the bridge, Cha and Kyung-min continue to navigate the opposite lane, watching the wreckage unfold. The vehicle with the cage manages to escape, but Yang's car hits debris and flips over. The chaos worsens when a flying tire strikes Cha's car, sending it crashing into a fence, while another military vehicle crashes into Yang's overturned car. The cage car narrowly avoids further disaster and comes to a stop. The driver checks the cage to ensure its contents are secure. Kyung-min suggests they should help the others, but Cha instructs her to stay in the car while he investigates. The soldiers have already rescued Yang, who keeps mumbling about some dogs. As Cha stays with Yang, the soldiers rush to inspect the cage, only to find it empty except for the driver's dead body in the back. The captain immediately orders all cell signals on the bridge to be jammed. Cha takes Yang to his car and attempts to call for help, but his phone loses signal, as do those of all the other victims. To make things worse, Cha realizes that Kyung-min is missing. Kyung-min, meanwhile, has followed a strange sound and encounters a large dog, E9, repeatedly ramming her head against the fence. Kyung-min tries to calm the dog by offering food, but Cha arrives just in time to protect her, causing E9 to flee. The soldiers inform Yang that the dogs have escaped and activate the control program. Yang initiates a software on his laptop as the soldiers prepare for a helicopter's arrival, which Cha overhears. Concerned about flying in the fog, Cha identifies himself as working for the Department of Security and inquires about the phone signal, but the soldiers dismiss him, telling him to stay out of it. Cha protests and tries to take a radio, but the soldiers handcuff him to his car's steering wheel. At that moment, Joe arrives in his truck and spots the same police officer from earlier, now directing traffic. Seizing the opportunity to make some cash, Joe agrees to tow the officer's car first. Inside his car, Yang finishes activating the program, displaying a list of dogs. The soldiers gear up with extra protection just as the dogs return, all controlled by chips in their heads that Yang's program manipulates, making them aggressive. The dogs move with incredible speed, attacking the soldiers, who attempt to fend them off with stun batons. Yang notices E9 hasn't moved and doesn't know why. After a fierce struggle, during which the soldiers use their helmets to fight back, they jump into the cage to lure the dogs in, successfully trapping them. Yang deactivates the program to calm the dogs down, just as a helicopter arrives, bringing more soldiers. Joe's dog, Jody, notices this and takes off after the soldiers, forcing Joe to follow her. Cha demands answers, but Yang only cryptically suggests Cha ask his boss about Project Silence before running to join the soldiers. The dogs are transferred to a new cage, with Yang managing the program, but he becomes becomes distracted by Jody's barking. Joe tries to reach Jody but is shoved aside by the soldiers. Kyungmin suddenly appears to pick up Jody, and a soldier attempts to stop her, but Cha steps in to defend his daughter. In the meantime, another soldier discovers a chip on the ground and realizes that E9 had been banging her head to remove it. As the helicopter begins lifting the cage, a soldier on board is shocked to see E9 perched on top. She immediately attacks him, causing the helicopter to lose control and drop the cage. The co-pilot tries to shoot E9, but she's too fast, killing him and then attacking the pilot. As the helicopter crashes into the bridge's suspension cables, E9 jumps out just before the aircraft catches fire. The burning wreck spins wildly and becomes entangled in the suspension cables, creating a loud noise that drives the caged dogs into a frenzy. Eventually, they break free from the cage, leaping out and wreaking havoc. They destroy cars and viciously attack anyone in sight, killing without hesitation. The crowd panics, fleeing as bodies drop around them. One of the dogs lunges at Yang, who throws his laptop to distract it. The dog reacts quickly, biting his leg and dragging him toward the fence. Just in time, Cha grabs Yang and pulls him away from the dog's jaws. A soldier appears and attempts to electrocute the beast, but another dog leaps in and kills him. Another beast approaches, prompting Cha to flee with Kyungmin, Joe, and Jody. Yora frantically searches for Moran, who's trapped in the panicking crowd. As a dog chases after Moran, Yora grabs a golf club, strikes the animal, and then escapes with her sister. Joe attempts to get into his truck but finds a dog inside, forcing him to run as well. Yang manages to locate a working car, and after some struggle with debris, Cha and Kyungmin hop in. Although Cha hesitates to stop for Joe and Jody, Kyungmin insists, and they manage to get them in the trunk just as a dog is closing in. While other survivors seek refuge in the bus, Cha's group presses on, witnessing the aircraft stuck on the bridge finally explode. Debris rains down, igniting flames from the truck's leaking gas, which block the exit. The fire causes another car to explode, sending more debris flying and shattering Cha's car window. He loses control of the vehicle and crashes into the fence while attempting to avoid the flames. Meanwhile, Jung is trying to organize a rescue, but helicopters are grounded by the fog and the bridge is too high for boats to reach. Despite these challenges, he reassures the media that they are deploying all available resources. Back on the bridge, Cha grabs Yang's radio to call for help, but receives no response as another dog jumps onto the car. The dog sniffs the glass briefly before getting bored and leaving. Yang then explains that he originally developed these dogs as rescue animals that responded to human voices. However, the military reprogrammed them for hunting under orders from the US and European countries to create killer canines capable of locating and eliminating terrorists. The dogs were trained to recognize their targets by voice, but the project failed as the dogs became uncontrollably violent. The dogs were on the bridge because the military was attempting to dispose of these failed specimens. Cha tries again and finally reaches Jung on the radio. Jung instructs them to move back to the center of the bridge, warning that the truck's flames are releasing toxic gas. Cha confronts Jung about Project Silence, revealing that he has enough evidence to expose the involvement of the current minister. However, Jung admits that their own department is also implicated. Just then, several dogs surround the car, but another explosion intensifies the flames, scaring the dogs away. Smoke begins to seep into the car, and just in time, the bus arrives to rescue them. Covering their faces, Cha's group runs to join the other survivors. As the situation worsens, the bridge starts collapsing. The bus quickly retreats just before the aircraft crashes, triggering a massive explosion. The blast and the resulting shock waves snap the bridge's suspension cables, causing the center of the bridge to collapse into the sea, dragging many cars with it. Fortunately, the bus escapes in time. Nearby, E9 gathers her pack. Once the chaos settles, Cha introduces himself to the group and explains that the authorities are delayed because of the fog, but assures everyone that rescue is on the way. He lies, claiming that the phone lines are down due to the explosion and that the dogs are just military canines suffering from a severe case of rabies. Although the survivors are skeptical, Joe supports Cha's story and the crowd accepts it. Joe then finds an abandoned bottle of alcohol, takes it, and asks Cha for a private conversation at the back. Joe demands the gas money, but Cha surprises him by offering a much bigger reward and even a medal if he stays quiet. Minutes later, a SWAT team arrives on the bridge and heads straight to the bus to start the evacuation, reporting they haven't seen any dogs. Cha warns Jung about the imminent threat, but Jung reassures him that the soldiers will protect them. As the group crosses the bridge, they pass by countless bodies scattered around. Suddenly, Yang spots a dog weaving through the cars and retreats, accidentally setting off a car alarm. To their horror, more alarms begin blaring all around them. The soldiers move ahead to investigate, only to be ambushed by the dogs, who had been deliberately triggering the alarms. dangerous. The dogs are so intelligent that when they attack, they target the soldiers' weapons first, causing stray gunfire that injures bystanders. Miran is hit in the leg, and Yura rushes to shield her sister, using an object for protection. As the dogs take down the soldiers one by one, Sunak, confused and disoriented, tries to pet a dog. It throws her to the ground, injuring her, but is scared off by gunfire. Cha also gets attacked by a dog, fighting it off as he notices Joe hiding under a car. Jody's barking catches the dog's attention, allowing Joe to flee with her. Meanwhile, Cha rushes to Kyung-min, who is desperately trying to pull her bag away from another dog. Cha urges her to let it go, but Kyung-min refuses, determined to keep her mother's book. Cha forcibly pulls her back, but when the dog starts to chase them, a soldier shoots it, only to be killed by another dog moments later. Cha and Kyung-min manage to run back to the bus, hiding in the luggage compartment. Realizing his radio has fallen, Cha ventures out again, retrieves it, and grabs Kyung-min's bag and a flare gun. While waiting inside the bus, Kyung-min watches a video of her mother reading to her in the hospital, missing the sight of her father's smile. Her thoughts are interrupted by Yang, who opens a hatch that leads them into the main part of the bus. Yang explains that E9 is the original dog, and all the other dogs are her clones. E9 sees the others as her offspring, and during the experiments, she had to watch as humans repeatedly killed her puppies. What E9 is doing now isn't about hunting, it's revenge. Meanwhile, Cha finds the last of the survivors hiding in a fallen truck. Only Joe, Jody, the sisters, and the elderly couple remain. Joe admits he's told the others the truth about the dogs, and Sunak is severely bleeding. Cha lights some torches with the flare gun and shoots another flare into the sky to signal for help. Jung sees the flames on the security cameras, and Cha pleads for snipers to take out the dogs. But Jung refuses, worried about reporters capturing it on video, and promises that a SWAT team is waiting at the broken part of the bridge. Desperate, Cha informs Jung that the survivors know everything, but Jung coldly ends the call. When the group reaches the bus, Kyung-min attempts to open the door, but Yang stops her, fearing the dogs will enter. The dogs are already surrounding the bus, so the survivors use the flames from the torches to fend them off. Despite their efforts, one dog manages to reach Sunak and bites into her stomach. Byung-hak burns the dog with his torch, forcing it to retreat, but not before it bites her foot. The torches are beginning to die down, so Joe takes a swig from the alcohol bottle he found earlier and spits it at the fire, creating a large burst of flames that keeps the dogs at bay. Cha takes out the flare gun and, for a moment, almost aims at Yang, but instead fires the flare into the ground. The sudden flash of light blinds everyone, causing Yang to release Kyung-min, who finally opens the bus door. The survivors rush inside, and Joe angrily kicks Yang for not helping. Soon after, they realize the bus has no keys, but they manage to start it with Joe's master key. Meanwhile, Jung cancels his press appearances and feels his presidential hopes slipping away. He receives a message from the minister, telling him he gets to decide whether or not to save the survivors. As the bus reaches the broken section of the bridge, Cha tries to contact the SWAT team through the radio, but there's no response. The group debates what to do next, aware that the dogs are still lurking. Kyung-min suggests a plan. They hide in the luggage compartment with a camera. As they wait, Sunak tragically passes away. Before long, the dogs enter the bus, and the group pulls a string to close the door, trapping the beasts inside. The survivors emerge, but Byung-hak refuses to leave his wife's side. As Cha argues with him, the dogs find the hatch and begin trying to force it open. Byung-hak insists that Cha and the others go while he stays behind to block the hatch. The dogs bite his arm, and as Cha tries to pull him free, Joe steps in to drag him away. With a final effort, Byung-hak closes the luggage compartment just as the dogs descend upon him. Cha wants to go back and save him, but Joe has to hold him back, reminding him it's too late. The group then searches for the SWAT team, but the area is deserted. Upon learning Cha has been talking to Jung, Yang laughs, revealing that Jung was the one who started Project Silence, the initiative that propelled him to his current position. Furious, Cha calls Jung, demanding medical help and the press to be ready for their arrival, or else he'll make Jung regret it. The survivors plan to use Joe's truck to escape through the toxic gas, but the keys are still on the bus. As Yang looks for his laptop, they devise a plan to lure the dogs into a cage. Cha volunteers to act as bait. Before he enters the cage, Kyung-min tells her father she doesn't want to study abroad, handing him her mother's book. Yura readies her golf clubs and admits to Miran that she knew her passport had expired, but hadn't mentioned it because she was scared of the tournament. Yang then plays a transmission of Cha's voice reading from the book. Driving the dogs wild, Yura begins hitting golf balls at the bus windows until they're weak enough for the dogs to break through. The dogs flood into the bus and are trapped inside the cage, shaking it to get to Cha. Joe takes the opportunity to retrieve the keys, but he finds E9 still in the bus, as she lacks a tracking chip. Panicked, Joe rushes to his truck, where the others are waiting, but E9 follows him and attacks Yang on sight. Yang grabs a stun baton and shocks E9, but she pulls back when the ground starts trembling. A new section of the bridge is collapsing. As the cage and the dogs fall with the vehicles into the sea, E9 tries to help her pack, but they all slide into the water. The last dog gets trapped under some debris, and E9 makes a desperate attempt to free it. The cage gets stuck on the bridge just before falling. Cha warns the others to stay back, fearing the truck's weight will worsen the situation. While waiting, Cha reads a note his wife wrote at the end of her book. Then he spots Kyung-min approaching with a towing hook. He opens the door to warn her to stay away, but E9 doesn't attack Kyung-min, remembering her kindness. As the bridge continues to collapse, E9 leaps after the last dog and falls into the sea. The cage slips further, but Cha holds on. Suddenly, Kyung-min appears atop the cage, attaches the hook, and climbs inside with her father. The others get in the truck and drive off, towing the cage behind them. The bridge is disintegrating, and Joe speeds through the toxic gas, dodging flames and debris. At one point, the cage disconnects, but when they finally reach safety, Cha and Kyung-min are believed dead until the cage rolls into view, its momentum keeping it moving. Reunited, Cha promises Joe the medal he deserves. They drive to the end of the bridge, where authorities and reporters await. Jung greets them warmly, only for Cha to punch him, throwing the bribe money on the ground. Cha then tells the reporters the full story, offering up all the recordings of the experiments as proof. He announces that Kyung-min no longer has to study abroad, and they share a relieved smile. Meanwhile, on the shore, E9 emerges from the water with her last surviving clone. She stares at the bridge, already plotting her revenge. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. I always love hearing from my viewers, so feel free to leave a comment below with your thoughts on the video or any suggestions for future content. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.